So let's start standing. And the idea usually is to warm up, right? So if you'll take a moment just to apply a little bit of that yoga awareness, right? So yoga starts with just creating an enhanced state of self-awareness. That could be with the physical body, that could be with your breath, it could be with more advanced would be observing the state of your energy or thoughts. I said observing, not necessarily experiencing. Experiencing could be, more awareness too, though, subjectively. So we try to basically create a more aware state. Okay. So usually that's of the body, of the breath. Usually that's by feeling or subjective experiencing. But the practice eventually is more like objective observation of physical, breath, energetic, mental, emotional. Okay. So we are going to start with a few movements today. Standing, I am going to bring you kind of to a quick plank, and then we're going to kind of get you right down on the back, hit your abs, and then your hips. Okay. So please take your time. Let's take a big inhale in your nose, and a big exhale. Just a few more what we call isolated breaths. A big inhale in your nose, please. Try to bring the breath into the abdomen. All your core muscles are breathing muscles. So it is important to remember that breathing is core work. As I inhale, not only does my abdomen expand forward, but it expands to the sides. Okay, you almost feel this expansion upward and downward as well. You also bring the breath into your middle torso core, and then even your upper body, your chest and your upper back. So we're just going to go through a few movements, a good maybe 30, 45 seconds in each. You just kind of make it your own. Remember not to move too stiff. Also, we're not necessarily seeing how far our range of motion can go. Warm up isn't to challenge strength or flexibility, but like to get the blood flowing to, heat the body. Okay, here we go. It starts like this. We're going to inhale our arms up. Exhale our knee toward our chest. Inhale our arms up. Exhale our knee toward our chest. Okay, inhale, exhale. Now you can get a little bit more where I bend the knee, okay? And I don't really have to pull. I reach my arms up. If you want a little bit more, pull, a little bit bend, okay? So I started a little bit slower like I normally do. Usually warm up starts slower and then you build up speed. It depends on how you're feeling. Some mornings I can warm up really intensely. Some mornings I'm kind of really just slow getting into it. But it looks like this, okay? Maybe here, little squat. Okay? So if you're just joining, today in Yoga Core, you know how I like to mix in different modalities of exercise. This is actually kind of like a martial art thing. How about we do it another way? It's been about 30, 40 seconds. Just step your right foot back, do the same thing. It's not a big lunge. Knee up, arms up, knee up. See the big swing? You can go further if you're ready, right? But it's a pretty big movement. Look at the big arm swing. Foot up, back. Leg back, leg forward and up. Arms forward and up, arms back. Same thing, okay? It looks kind of like this a little bit more in martial arts, right? But I'm just putting a little bit more of a yoga twist. The goal is to move your hips. Move your shoulders, start to balance, okay? Sometimes yoga gets too slow. I like to get you moving fast. Second side, left foot back. I want those arms moving a lot, okay? It's another thing, a lot of times we'll do warm up and exercise, say you're on the treadmill or the cycle. Your arms aren't really moving that much. So when I do on the treadmill, I'll often really get my arms moving. I'll be walking or jogging. My arms will be moving in many ways, okay? So it's good to just remember that. Move your body a lot, okay? So if you're just joining, we're just kind of doing this little step back and then knee thrust, okay? Just keep an open mind, right? Sometimes, whether it's yoga or, a certain type of exercise. People get kind of narrow-minded in what they like to do or good at. And I want to make sure we're well-rounded, yogis. Okay, now watch me here. Now it's our first lateral movement. Look how I kind of bend my knees and I kind of just shift side to side. This is now another hip movement, but it's abduction, adduction, which means your legs are spreading laterally and coming together. Now look how I get a little lower and I step further. Now go slow, feel it. Don't hunch over. Let's do a few more. Look how I get my upper body a little bit less stiff. You see how at first I was stiff? And then look at this. I kind of like flow a little bit more. See that? Make it core. Feel your abdomen. Lengthen your side bodies. Support that structure. And you can get a little bit lower if you're feeling good. You can even do a few of these. Look. It's just a different type of training, okay? But let's make it yoga. How do we do that? By practicing self-aware. Remember the tiers of the self-aware practice. It all starts with exploring. And that's what we're doing. By exploring, we enhance our self-knowledge and self-understanding. By enhancing our self-knowledge and self-understanding, we learn to develop things like self-love and the ability to self-discipline, because we understand our conditions better, okay? Through that, really self-love after self-discipline, self-mastery, and the ability to self-transformation, okay? So that's these layers now. All right, stand up nice and tall, and then I'm gonna start with this one here. It is more, the feet aren't really moving, it is still a hip movement. People tend to not think of their hips as their core, but it is just as much as here, okay? So I'm drawing some nice circles. Now, if I wanna get more into it, I'm kind of bobbing and weaving a little bit. You see how I'm supported? I'm not like letting my knees just fly around. I am kind of moving the knees in space, but I'm just kind of moving laterally, circling. I can do a few of these. It's almost like you're boxing, right? I did promise you a little bit. This first thing we were doing is martial arts, right? It's like it's like the high knee, right? It's like what do they call that? Certain martial art where they're doing that high knee. It's a certain exercise we do in the kickboxing type martial arts, okay? Now, let's get those arms moving again. I'm gonna keep going for our movements because I don't wanna spend too much time here in this part of class. I'm gonna bend those knees now. Now, I'm gonna just bring my fist here and I'm just gonna start to punch. This is faster now, okay? And I'm just starting to punch. And I really wanna stabilize. It's core yoga. What does that mean? Core awareness. So bring a lot of awareness into the abs, into those hips, and have a lot of power and strength there, okay? Couple more. We're just kind of punching straight ahead. Make it core, move those arms, okay? Nice, Brian. You can like punch a little bit more like across. And you notice I'm getting my body into it. I'm not too stiff, okay? It is good to do a few like that, but then it's good to maybe, look at this one. Let's do another one. It's like the uppercut. So I'm kind of striking right in the middle. I could go a little bit side. Come on, a couple more. What's the founding principle of neurobic exercise? It's doing new things, okay? Confusing your body and your brain and your muscles. That's it. That's the key. Routines are fantastic, but they can be also not too good sometimes. All right, let's shake it out a little bit. Now, this is another movement here. It is a little confusing at first. My feet are wide. My right leg goes up across. Bend, left leg up across. So it's like that knee thrust, but it is more lateral in nature. See that? So it's like a pigeon. You see that? You see how it's like a pigeon? Okay? And you could do it like that too. We do it like this. It's a little easier. But I want to get a little bit more like bounce, squat. See that? And you could even see me now? Big circle, watch. I go into that movement, then I wrap it around back. Look at that. It looks like this in martial arts. But it might be early for that. Oh, but my back is actually hurting today. I injured it last week doing crazy yoga. And, I'm still working it out. So I'd be taking it easy today if I was in class. I'd be looking for those easier versions. So that's that big circle like this. Let's say in, out. Now, let's do out and then in. Step to the back of your mat. Watch me here. Right leg back and around. Left leg back, big circle. So from this angle, it should be challenging on your hips. Come on. Yogis, even though this isn't like an ab exercise necessarily, it is, but I want you to really feel how everything is relating to your core. So let's make every exercise we do just more aware in the core, right? So I'm just walking a little forward. You don't have to walk forward. You can do this in place too, but again, my right leg kind of goes back. My knee turns out, forward and down. Out, back. See that? Try it. Couple more. It's a big hip circle standing. It's a big one, yogis. It's straining. It's, if you're new to it, it's not, I always tend to show like big movements, right? So, it might be here, like not that small, not that big. All right, so we're gonna do a last couple standing things here, yogis. We'll do last few standing things. Now, that is big hip circle. I still wanna work the pivot. If you remember on Sunday, we did something like this, right? It's kind of a play on that, but it's a little bit, it is the punch. So I want you to pretend like there's two bad guys coming at you from both sides. Punch, 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 okay? So I'm pivoting, turning, twisting, thrusting, pivoting, neutral, thrusting. It is a lot of like almost more cardiovascular work. That's one thing yoga can sometimes not be adequate for, is peaking out your cardiovascular system. So especially in Zoom, you go into a yoga room and the heat's up and you keep getting pushed together, you can get your cardiovascular system up. But sometimes when we're on our own and yoga gets slow, I tend to teach slow, our heart rate doesn't peak enough. I do want that heart rate to have to peak and almost get carried away, okay? It's really good to do that relatively often, okay? So that's the kick, that's the pivot and the punch, okay? Now, let's keep it going. Something a little bit more structured, symmetry. Hips basically lock, tension, load. The hinge. Inhale, weight into your toes. It's called Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, butt squeeze, chest lift. Inhale, knees bent to start, yogis. Look at that long spine. Exhale, butt squeeze. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. You see it? That is a bridge. Remember, like when we're on our back and you push your hips forward and squeeze your butt? Same thing, okay? Your hips become the most forward in space. Look at my body. Just don't look at my knees. My knees would be bent in bridge, right? It's the same exercise at the top. So you're basically here, but standing, okay? It is a hip thrust. It's not commonly thought of as that. I want that butt squeezing at the top, but also a posterior pelvic tilt where your pubic bone comes forward. So it's almost like you cat the top and hip thrust. So posterior tilt and hip extension. If you learn that, yogis, anytime I'm teaching like advanced yogi teachers, and they're like, why can't I get that strong and do all these big postures? It's the compound of posterior tilt and hip extension. It makes like all the advanced like pistol squats, piking up the handstand, moving in handstand, because you don't drop into flexion where you're all like this. All right, get out of there. So you did your first hip hinge. I want to do one last big movement now. This is the further step back. This is a kick. It is martial arts, okay? So I want you to think like a martial artist. Body awareness, skill and control, soft, skillful, power, okay? Inhale, right foot steps back. Exhale, kick forward. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. We haven't done this in a while. I love this movement. You know, it can be something like this. It can just be this too, right? Alternating sides, look. Kick, 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 kick. It can be the step back repetitive side. I want those legs shooting forward a little bit more straight, okay? You know, when I did a private, like, a couple weeks ago now, but we did a lot of stuff like this. It was with kids, so you know, you gotta just make it fun, and kids like to do playful stuff. So what we were doing, we were kicking forward, right? And then I had them kicking a little wide, and then I had them kicking lateral, right? And then I had them kind of like doing the hip swing. I mentioned it earlier. This type of thing. The goal is to move those legs up, maybe back. Okay, but if you want to get a little bit more creative, you know, there is the pivot, the roundhouse, back. So it starts back, forward, then it's more like angled, then it's more like pivot back, open, pivot forward, close. They call that like a roundhouse. Last few, please do your second side. Remember, yogis, the reason that it's, again, I mentioned it's good to do your new things. We want to remember in exercise physiology, there's this like fundamental rule, it's called, that you always want to remember, is that posture affects function. You know, I'm always talking about posture. Posture is going to affect big time the function of your body on every level, your endocrine, your digestive system, it makes your skin look different. Also, so posture affects function, but function affects posture. So we want to remember both sides. We can practice posture and function, and it's going to propel our body development and optimization. That's what we're working on, optimizing the function of the body via practicing function, but also posture. So I don't want to see it like this there, all right? I want to make sure I'm really emphasizing that our focus is posture and function, okay? So let's shake it out. Do one of these. Nice job with your kicks. Couple rounds of those punches. So for time's sake, I do want to get going because 20 minutes is already gone. I was hoping to do a little bit more. How about we do one quick balance? If you're up for it, either tree or let's do our warrior 3, okay? A version of your choice today. Think of it more like holding a yoga pose now, okay? Easier, you know, easiest maybe here. Easier, maybe here. I love this one, you know that. And then, you know, more challenging, maybe here. I know we haven't even stretched the hamstrings yet, right? But a lot of times your body needs range of motion in life and you didn't stretch before. Hold your yoga pose, work some cues, pulling the belly in, shoulders back and down, neck long, activating the body where it's weak, loosening up, lightening where it's over tense. Breathe smooth and deep in and out the nose. I haven't really talked about that, yogis. No mouth breathing allowed in my class. If I catch anyone mouth breathing, you have to do 20 push-ups. Drill sergeant. All right, second side, guys. You know, we're going for about the usual goal in the initial yoga hold is like, you know, 45 seconds. 30 seconds is a little too short, unless you're injured, you're really new to yoga, really short holds. As we get better at it, longer holds. So a nice balance in static form, please. So you're on one foot. I'll let you choose. We got a smaller group of regulars. If you're just joining, we did this big kind of dancey martial art type warm up, all standing movements. And now we're just kind of like stabilizing it all.
our tonic and our phasic, right? So big force muscles and little stabilizer and balance. We're doing tree, we're doing warrior 3, or the 2 I mentioned.
So the idea is to stabilize all our movements now, like all this movement, let's lock it up, right? So there's your kind of balance more up through the hip. Now I want to take you right down to the ground. If you'd like to touch your toes, it might feel good to take a stretch. I keep moving forward. Do not feel like you have to keep up with me. It's so you can transition right into the next thing. We don't waste too much time in demo, all right? Next stretch looks something like this, or just like this. A little bit more stretchy. Remember, I suggest kind of, bending your knees and arching the tail going up and back. You're going to get more of that hamstring stretch, unless your intention is to stretch your lower back, rounding more like this. We're moving through some postures based on what your body's telling you, not what I'm exactly telling you. Downward dog is next, please. So try to keep your head below your heart. We are in our first big inversion. And with the blood flow increasing into the brain, we want that nice, deep, smooth inhale in at the nose.
Remember, yogis, that when you breathe in your nose, you release more nitric oxide, and that is going to dilate your blood vessels. Your blood will basically take in more oxygen. So it is more efficient to breathe in your nose. On many levels, it's not just that. There's way more things happening. You're stimulating better neurogenesis is pretty much proven now. That olfactory, sensory neuron dendrites are the only part that's connected directly, neurally, right to your hypothalamus, where your main amount of neurogenesis is, building of new brain cells. When you stimulate your olfactory smell, that's why in the neurogenics, they have you smelling all the time. The aromatherapy, that stuff is real, and it's really good for you to have you can see in the corner there, I have my little oil diffuser, and we always have that thing running. If you're learning, kids are learning to stimulate olfactory, music's good too. Another sense involved with the learning. You build better memory, synapses and neurons. All right, guys. So it's 3 postures in a row here. They're all in a sense forward bend. It's plank pose. So I want to go for a plank. If you want to do push-ups, you're more than welcome. Or hovering one foot, a hand, a forearm plank, something where the body's starting to bear some weight, and you're really having to work. Because I had you moving a lot, I want very still. It's almost like what we call anti-movement. So it was very skillful, intentional movements. Now it's like, let's not let the body move unintentionally. Anti-movement from movement, okay? I got you on the clock here. Another good 20, 30 seconds at least. You hear all this debate about planks. Are they good? Don't waste your time doing planks. They're the best exercise ever. There's just a lot of context. It depends on the person. If you're teaching somebody's body to activate and compound, yeah, plank's a great one. But for someone who's pretty strong, it's just kind of a waste of time. But it is really fundamental and good to do, especially if you're coming off injury. Work on squeezing that butt more. You can't really go wrong with a plank, but for an advanced athlete, you can't really waste time doing a plank. All right, get down on those knees. Now, I am going to stick with front line for now. I did mention we are going to flip over here in a moment and do your abs, but I'm going to start with one of my favorite exercises that I usually do a few times a week, and I don't get to teach it in yoga. I really save it for this class. Now, this is the tension lean. I don't want to see your butt going back. I don't want to see your back arching. I want you to go slow, barely move to start. You have to really work on squeezing your butt here, yogis, okay? So your butt has to squeeze, okay? And I lean back, pressing into the top of the feet. When I'm really warmed up, I go way further than this. I'm starting to be able to go all the way back again. Like my butt will touch my heels. But I'm not gonna do that right now because I told you my back's a little sore.
You know, in the last 2 days, I've taught about 6 yoga classes and done about 6 hours of deep tissue massage. My body is really sore and achy. I'm not going to push it, but I can easily go back here with a healthy approach. I'm squeezing that butt, leaning back, feeling tension in my thighs, and then I come up after a good amount of tension and work. And then you're kind of at your own pace. Do I move forward and back quickly? Do I go really slow and hold? I do both. Ideally, you move slower if you're new. You know, it's just like a warm-up. You don't start really fast and really deep. You start really slow and barely go any. You lean back an inch, you feel that front body tension, you come back up. You have to squeeze your butt, yogis, and pull your belly in a little bit, okay? This is from the knee rehab too, yogis, all right? It is a more, once your knees are not like, you know, really tender, we do this. You know, we start with knee extension, you know, basically, you know, knee rehab, you know, the same exercise, by the way. Knee rehab just starts like this. Like, oh, you just tore your meniscus or MCL or separated your tibia fibula. You just start like that. It is the same exercise you're doing though, right? You're leaning back in tension. That is more compression, what I just showed you, but same thing, okay? Now, let's keep going here, yogis. Maybe a little cat-cow just to neutralize. And I'm gonna do a couple vinyasa chaturangas. Think about it like stretching the front body, okay? So if there's another version you wanna do, remember I love this version. If you're feeling good, you go straight from dog, you get low. And then you just fly right up. And then you get low again and your hips lean you up and back. So it's just to kind of, you know, train your muscles in a new way. That's actually how you get strong. If you always do routine, plateau happens and then growth is very like slow and small increments. You try new exercise, your growth just bumps up a level or it really angles upward. Basically like the athletic training performance, let's call it, they're just basically doing a lot of new things regularly, right? And that's how you keep growth at like its highest level. Basically keeping your body uncomfortable. Neuromuscular training, it's called. New exercises, confusing the body, teaching it something new, okay? Chaturangas are fine. High plank, low plank, up dog cobra. Knees, chest, chin, down on your knees, gentle cobra. I'm not gonna go over the details. We have a small group of everyone I recognize in here. So it just means less little same old demos, same old cues. Just more like do the exercise, get into your body, feel it, your variation this morning. Still in front body, right, as we lower down, but then I lengthen my front body more. Right, that lean back we were doing is kind of the same as Cobra, but a little bit more in that stretch. So let's do it one more time, down to your knees. Last round. A lot of times I'll do 3 to 5 rounds. I don't want to take the time to do that right now. 2 will get you pretty good. Shins parallel. Inhale, lean back, butt squeezes, butt squeezes, butt squeezes. Back up. Continue at your pace. Try to get to 3, 6, maybe 12. Keep going, yogis. I'm right here. Just letting my little pup outside. So yogis, we are going to switch it up and start our back body. Now, this is a tough one. Take a moment if you need. Do a little cat-cow. Really nice job with your front body tensions. That's your thighs more, hopefully some of your hip flexors. We are going to come into your abs and hip flexors momentarily, but I do want to do an outer hip just to kind of contrast, just to give those muscles a short break, okay? It's kind of like, oh, I just did some front body at the gym, or lower body, how about I do an upper body, and then I'll go back to lower. I want to do our lateral hip raises. Remember we did this one, I believe it was Sunday. I want to revisit.
By doing this a couple days in a row, you're going to create a lot of muscle memory. That's the benefit of the routine. Now, one option is simple. Knee, shin, hover, right leg out and up. Hold, hold, hold. Notice my foot is not back. I lower down. I do not put it down. I hover, right back up. Hold. If you want more, leg is out straight. Do you see this? I hover my right foot. I lift it out and up. Hover. Out and up. Hover. That is more difficult. It should be, anyway. Maybe not in your body. You find a lot of people have different muscular development patterns, and based on how you've lived your life, you have certain muscular chains stronger. So the first one looks like this. Notice I'm not letting my shoulders shift or my hips. Notice here, yogis, I'm not really trying to shift. I got to press my left foot down and hands down. I hover my right foot and I lift it out. Okay, you're going to feel killer outer body. We came from front body. Now we're in that lateral outer body. Only going to do one round, so make it really fierce to where you feel some burn. Shake it out. Neutralize with a cat-cow. Second side. We are going to do another. This is like more of a compression type activation of the glutes. It means it shortens, like squeezes. We will do tension of glute medius a little bit later in class, okay? You're gonna start stretching kind of relatively soon, so let's keep it going, yogis. Now, I do want to do our one main glute warm-up, because listen, the way you might get glutes standing, yeah, you get it in hip thrust, but it's really deeper squat, right? So I do want to come down to our chest. Whenever you're done, I move forward so you can get right to our next exercise. Not much, wasting of time in between. All right, so we're going to lengthen forward here. We're not doing our lower back just yet. It's just the leg lift, and I'm going to do single leg to start. It's very simple. I don't want you to push down with your opposite leg. I just want you to push your pubic bone down, pull your belly in, lift your right leg and hold. Try to straighten your knee by engaging your quad and point the toe. So that's called triple extension. Extension of hip, extension of knee, extension of foot, okay? Remember I mentioned posterior tilt in hip extension. So you're just holding your right leg up, and then from your hip, just pulse the leg up. So we are doing some Pilates. These last two moves, commonly used in Pilates, right? Pilates is really smart, good stuff, okay? Big inhale, lower it down. Hopefully you're feeling that right here, where your thigh meets your butt, right there under the butt. Left leg lifts. Do not press down with your opposite leg, okay? That's the thing. People push down. Yeah, I can lift higher, but that's compensation. You don't need to do that, okay? I'm lifting my leg via the hip, straightening my leg, pulling my belly in, my ribs in, pressing my pubic bone down, and then I pulse from the hip. Notice if my hip starts to laterally rotate, I want to kind of turn the outer leg down more. Medial rotate more. Pulse it up. It's all core work today. This is that one day a week where we blast your core. You need one of those per week probably, okay? Maybe two, but then you're going to kind of always be sore there, all right? So big inhale. You did your pulsing in your left glute. Make sure you recognize which one's more difficult to fire. Bend your knees after your round of glute. So we did glute medius, lateral lifts, glute maximus, extension lifts. Now a little kind of rotation to both glutes rotate, so you get that release. Now lower back, okay? Now I don't want you to stretch just yet. Hands to your lower ribs, lengthen your core. If you're feeling good, maybe arms back a little bit more. I'm gonna lift my chest, hold, press my pubic bone down, shoulders back and down, and then I'm gonna lower down about 3 to 4 inches. Lift up, lower down. Lift up, lower down. A few more. I want my lower back and my middle back to be active. It's my back muscles lifting me up. It is not my arms. It's not momentum. It is my lower back tensing. It is a compression strengthener. Compression tends to be misunderstood. Compression is good often. Compression is just another way to say, we're kind of like shortening the muscle, right? We're bringing two bones closer together. That's what a muscle contraction does. It's not a bad thing, it's like saying I'm just contracting the muscle, okay? Whereas it's like the opposite of tension, okay? Now, you're doing your round there. You're going to take a little breather. I do want you to do another one of these, okay? Because this is preparing us for our weight-bearing hip thrust. For some of us, it will be bridge. For some of us, it will be table or one-legged. One more round. If you're feeling really good, you could compound. Legs, arms, chest lift. Pause. Locust or super person pose. Lower down. Legs, arms up. If you want to do arms like this, just to switch it out. I love this exercise. I've started to do it with a little bit more like weights. I have ankle weights. I have ankle weights that go 1 to 10 pounds. They're gymnast ones. And I'll put like ankle weights on here. It's way more difficult, by the way. Just even having like 5 pounds on each ankle. I'll do like a little like 5-pound weight in my hands. Sometimes you see I have my weights around. I just do locust with like little tiny weights. So it's like, because I can move I'm not restricted and I can move very much a lot of range. You don't really need a lot of range here. It's more like just teach those muscles to stabilize in the back body. Back body is what's keeping your body in posture all day, kind of fighting gravity, not your front body so much. When you see somebody's body kind of muscular degeneration, it starts to more go into like forward bending like this. That's why back body is keeping you upright, because when this shortens, it's going to bring you here, right? When this gets stronger, when the back gets stronger, it's going to bring you there more, okay? So you did your locusts, you did your cobra, you did your hip extensions, you did your hip lateral lifts. Back line, cover, okay? We should do calf raises, but I'm going to skip it. Child pose is next, unless you want a quick cobra. So we are already approaching the end of class. We're going to hit those abs, okay? And then we're going to do your peak butt. So we're going to do hip flexors and abs. Now, a little food for thought while you're doing your quick child pose or down dog. Hip flexors have way more strength potential than abs. A lot of people trying to get handstand and training their abs so much. It's necessary. It's good. A lot of people's now abs will compensate, or hip flexors won't let us train abs. So what I want to do is isolate abs first, okay? So let's swing our legs around. Lay on our back. So I'm going to do isolated abdominals, like rectus abdominis, let's start with. That's the six-pack muscle, okay? Now, how do we really isolate it? It is a crunch, whether it's reverse or regular crunch, that's really the best way, okay? Whether it's static or dynamic or ballistic, crunch, okay? So it's quite simple. If you want a little extra, you can put a block between the thighs. That might activate your hip flexors more though. So, if you're a person that tends to be really tight in here, maybe you don't use your block. It might be even better to like press your feet down a little bit more, because if I activate my hamstrings and my glutes, it'll release or reciprocate and abate your hip flexors. Here we go. Let's do our crunch here. So I'm going to do the 2-part crunch. It looks like this. I lift my first, and then I lift a little higher. I lower down, pause halfway, and then I lower down almost all the way, okay? But not quite. My abs are still engaged. My lower back pressing down. Lift up one tier, a little more up that second tier, lower down, pause in that first tier, and then lower down. So it's a 2-part crunch, it's usually called. Up, up, down, down. Up, up, down, down. Last few. The idea is to keep your feet down because your hip flexors are going to want to turn on and take the tension. The tension meaning when you lean back, really. Tension is kind of described as like eccentric or negative. It's like as a muscle's lengthening,
there's weight on it, which would be the crunch. So it's like anti-extension. It's not really extension, active extension. It's more like anti-extension. It's funny. The muscles are like usually considered like the most mechanistic part of your body. Like it's like a machine, right? More so than neuro, more so than endocrine, more so than digestive, and but it's still just so complex. There's just key. You study the myology and the kinesiology, and God, the layers of understanding how the muscles work just keeps deepening. You think you understand them, and then you're like, whoa, you're exposed to like these whole other realms of how the muscles are working.
So I do want to do another one like that. It's subtle. It's the same thing, except look, my knees fall left a little. That's it. And then you have to be careful. I wouldn't like let them fall all the way. I hold them up middle ground. This might be a good one to hold your block. And it's the same thing. Crunch, crunch, down, down, up, down, down. You should feel a little bit more in your side body. Now, say you don't really feel that one or it doesn't feel right. A lot of times we'll isolate lateral body, which will hold crunch and we'll tap opposite heel. So this is a very, very lateral or coronal movement, side to side. This is like middle ground, okay? So this creates more between rectus abdominis and obliques, right in that connection. So as my knees fall to the left, I do that little crunch, okay? I just haven't done like a big crunching session in a while in this class, and I'm just looking at my previous classes. Like I do crunches all the time, not necessarily for a peak exercise, but like to warm up to really stimulate my abs. So like say I'm going to do like squats or really strong handstand or balance practice, I really need to fire my abs well. I'll usually use crunch with a little lateral, a little twist. Second side. So if your back hurts, this probably isn't your best option. You're not going to nearly get as much range in your crunch, most likely. You're not used to pulling here. This is normal, okay? You're doing cat-cow all the time, but you're not like here doing spinal flexion as much. So it is going to be more restricted. It is going to be more awkward. Don't necessarily think the quality of an exercise is determined by your ability to feel good or move in it or contract in it. Most likely it's just undeveloped. Every body part, it can be trained to move more skillfully, more integrity. It just takes practice, yogis. That's all it is. Okay, so we got about 2 more things to do here, depending on our time. Now, so I'll finish with twists, okay? So it is considered lateral movement really because the side body is shortening, okay? So it's just a little twist on something. Now I am going to do a reverse crunch. We do have a couple options. A lot of times when I'm doing this, when I do this at the gym, I'll actually hook my hands like under a bar or a contraption. That's going to create more tension, right? Because my fingers will be hooked. We can't really do it in yoga. And I'll do this, little pelvic lifts. It's called reverse crunch now. Reverse means your origin goes to insertion. If you understand the myology, your muscles connect the bone via tendon, and there's an origin of the muscle, which is like the anchor, and then the insertion is like being pulled toward the origin. That's the other connection where that moving bone pulls toward the anchored bone origin. So really, this is a reverse. Any reverse is where origin goes to insertion. A pull-up is a reverse pull, okay? Whereas a pull down, the same exercise, is the actual concentric. So I'm doing a little pelvic lift. Now, for those of us who want more, I can do my little leg swing. Ooh, that's hip flexor dominant probably. Up, pelvic lift. For those of us who want more, it's like the same thing we just did, but now I move the legs. I go out a little, up, out a little. Pelvic lift, out. Pelvic lift, out. Last few. Forward and back is safer. It is more symmetrical, so your muscles, it's just safer. Let's just leave it there, okay? When in doubt, just keep your legs up and lift that pelvis a little. We've done many different variations of this exercise over time. It's okay to be creative. You know, they do the circling here, where you draw like a big circle in your pelvic lift. That's one of my favorites that I don't teach enough. They do the bend knee swing. It's like a little easier. The idea is that we don't only want to just do like the regular crunch, because we'll develop certain like muscular patterns. In a lot of the EMGs, reverse crunch is one of the best ways to stimulate rectus abdominis activation or strength, okay? All right, so let's get out of there. So that's our reverse crunch. We did lateral crunch. Today's crunch day, because we are going to do hip thrust, so we're going to balance it out, because this can create this. So we are going to do the hip thrust. Don't worry. I got a plan to make sure we're not in balance from this. Now, yogis, the last crunch is a twist. I'm not going to teach bicycling. I'm going to keep your feet down today, okay, now, because I want your hip flexors to soften. I like this one. It's really nice. You know, we did this one, I think it was either last week. You know, this can work. Look, since I got, you know, how many people? 9 regulars today. Look, it's left hand, right thigh, right hand, left thigh. And it's this little pulse, okay? Another nice option I teach more often than not is this one. It is a crunch, okay? That's a really good one. And then in the end, you kind of pulse. Basics is this. I want your opposite shoulder to kind of crunch towards your opposite hip. So shoulder to opposite hip across the body. That's why I mentioned the bicycling one. This one, you know, it's not my favorite because hip flexor will dominate. Okay, and you tend to rock and my other favorite is this, yogis. Look, center, right, left. Center, right, center, left. And you can really just do out, out, okay, where you're twisting more. Today's crunch day. And you know, it's okay. I see some of you as you're kind of just like chilling on your back. That's cool. You know, this is a lot. It's 4 exercises in a row. You know, you don't have to go too crazy. You do a few. That's good enough. Okay, second side if you are. Just to be clear, this is our extent of the abs. Remember that I like to have you do some abs every day, not like do too much in one day there. And this is already a lot, okay? So we're doing our second side. If you're doing something one-sided, after this, it is our final strenuous exercise of class. Hip thrust, glute peak. This is ab peak, glute peak is next. Think of them as counter exercises, just like a vinyasa, okay? The balancing of the body a lot throughout class. Front body tension, back body compression. So when you're done, now, if you want a quick warm-up, symmetry is this. This will prepare everyone for final stimulating exercise. I want this to start activating. You see this muscle? It's the hammy. Okay, that is something we're kind of lacking today. I would love to do glute sliding, you know, sliding bridges, but you only have so much time in a day, okay? We did hip hinges for hamstring tensions. I want you to notice I can activate my hamstring. See that little muscle? I don't know if you guys can see that, but it engages by pulling my heels to my shoulders, lengthening my core, bringing that pubic bone higher, pressing the big toe down. Okay, so there's our warm-up for our back body. The exercise today is dynamic, moving, let's say. Right foot in the center. Now, I will give a quick demo, and then I'm going to kind of just lead you through it. Arm should be down if you're going to do one leg. Knee can be bent, okay? I want to press through my heel, my big toe, lift, lower, tap, lift. Drive through that bottom leg. If you want more, this is more of the full variation. Fingers behind you, face forward. One leg lifts. up, tap, up, tap. You are going to get more glute stimulation, particularly in the lower butt if you do it upright. Okay? So here we go. First side, somebody's already going. I want you to try to count it out. Get to 10. Get to 10 if you can. Come on now. It's those last few that are really going to get you strength. Do not let, you guys know valgus knee. Don't let the knee buckle inward laterally. No good. Knee over heel. So you have to readjust your footing, okay? Thanks, Jasmine. Come on now. Don't swing the top leg, Robert and Darlene. The top leg really isn't moving. It's that the bottom leg hip thrust. I'm picking on my parents, guys. So what I'm seeing is this. That's hip flexor dominant, right? You're going like this a lot. It's more like this leg is sturdy. Look. See how the top leg isn't moving? The top leg doesn't really move. It does a little because you're not trying to be too stiff, but do your second leg, and because I want you to do 2 rounds, okay? When I do single leg hip thrusts, first round is good and it is stimulating, but it's that second round that's really gonna make the muscles beg for a break, right? So you gotta, if it's a peak exercise, like say I go squat, that usually tends to be the strongest exercise I do that intimidates me. People are like, what's the most difficult exercise you do? Well, I squat with heavy weight. That's how I scare myself a little, torture myself. It's work. It's not like I go and it's like, okay, this is really fun. It's like, oh God, I have to go squat. Yoga is fun for me. Everything's relatively easy. I'm super comfortable with all the body calisthenics. So how do I make myself really be intimidated and don't like it? It's like weightlifting and big squatting, like max weight on my back. I'll put like 225 on and I'll try to get to like 6-9 reps going deep, and I'm scared a little bit and it's iffy. So we're using that here as like a peak exercise. You have to go where you're like mentally exhausted as far as challenge and stuff. So I want you to do one more round. Come on now. Single leg hip thrust. Come on now. Yeah, go, Steven. Drop that butt and thrust up on the bottom leg. Last round. Nice, Brian. Ooh, that's good control, Brian, because I can see your alignment. Your knee is right over your heel. Just notice that knee is going to buckle in and out a little bit. Try to control that. So stabilize abduction, adduction. And you might feel this right against the sacrum. What's nice is, right against here. We have all these parts of our glutes. I mentioned this part here where we did the straight leg extensions. And if you're upright in table, you're going to get that more, as opposed to in bridge, you're not going to be able to extend as well. So you're not going to get like right here, that curving under the butt. You see some people have like really established glutes, but it's like a flat line here. And then you see people with that big curve and tuck under. That is hamstring. So the hip hinge, right, with the posterior tilt extension is going to create that what we call thut development. It's where like your thigh meets your butt. And then there's also the medial, so it's like right in against here. You get like that. Some people are like really strong on the outer glute, but don't have it like right in against the sacrum. You have to really focus there and hug in on that midline, because everyone, when we're doing glutes, like if we're in Warrior 3, sorry, you guys are working, and I'm like trying to teach you something here. What happens is in Warrior 3, if you open your hip, you get much less inner butt right against the sacrum. So we got to keep that big toe pointing down in that Warrior 3, almost even medial, and then you're going to get that really intense work on the inner butt. Last round. After this, I'm just going to give you a stretch or two, okay? So go big here. Is anyone still going? Did you do both sides? Brian, Steven, you guys, you good? You guys are the only 2 people I can see, so everyone's hiding right now. No one wants to be seen right now. Okay, so we should do a stretch. Nice job. I think we should do a hammy and a back line. So here we go. Let's do our legs wide for a few breaths. If you want to do frog or just like a butterfly, that's cool. Try to flex the feet a little bit. So let's slow down, okay? Really nice job with your karate yoga today and your crunch yoga. Let's take a few breaths, slow down, and let's breathe, all right? Breathing becomes more of the practice now. You guys feel it in your butt? Give me the thumbs up. You feel the hip thrust? Yeah, cool. If there's another stretch calling to you, I'm gonna do two, so feel free. You see how I'm kind of like shifting a little side to side? It's just so in case I'm like too stiff in the practice. Sometimes, people feel tight. You get in that stretch and you're kind of like locked. I'm just adding like a little bit of more of that lightness. I see it too much in yoga. People are like too rigid, and I get it. We're trying to discipline and learn those cues, how to do it right. But let's not get too rigid and stiff in the poses, okay? Trying to, stretch and be stiff in it. It's kind of like an oxymoron, right? It doesn't make kind of like a contrasting idea there. So that's a nice little hammy and a nice inner thigh stretch. I was going to do a thigh stretch. We did some plank, we did some lean backs. And so if you're up for it, it's good to compress the ankles. We didn't really get much of that in there either. So if you want to go here, sitting on your ankles, leaning back. With practice, you can, go to your elbows, your back, take a few breaths. Restorative bridge could be a good one to stretch your front body here, or Sphinx, camel. And we got about 2 minutes left before I want to do a short meditative state. Another one might be good here is that pigeon, a quick taste of pigeon, where I bring that right shin forward, I crawl the left hip back, left foot back, okay, stay upright or come down. It's up to you, some days I'll do a couple stretches and hold long, and some days I'll just kind of quick taste through a lot of stretches. So last kind of stretch before,
a spinal twist might be nice laying on the back or seated. What does your body feel like it needs? That's called functional exercise. People always try to say, what does that mean? And I mentioned as far as standing, because it's like, how can exercise be relating to your life? Someone who sits all day or someone who's on a construction site all day, it's going to be a very different approach. A functional means adapting exercise based on lifestyle patterns, let's say, or what does your body need in the moment, apply via that information. That would be functional, as opposed to just like, I'm going to squat every day regardless of what my lifestyle pattern is like. Okay, so nice, Stephen, a little headstand. I like that. Yeah, not much inversions on Tuesday, so get it done. And let me give you another minute and a half. I mentioned a spinal twist. If you want to lay on your back and swing your legs up over your body. If you want to do a supported posture, my favorite posture is the restorative fish, one of them, where you get that upper spine back arching. It's a really good way to fascially change your body and the ribs. So how about, I know it's a little, what is it? It's 10 on the dot right now. So we'll go another minute and a half or so. I'll just give you, we'll end at about 10:05 today. Okay. Finish up that practice, yogis.
So right now I am going to teach flexibility tomorrow night on Zoom. Sorry about, some of these cancellations. I'm just, I've been subbing for, all the studios have opened and they kind of haven't filled all the classes and teachers are not ready to come back. So I'm like temporary covering some, and Equinox was paying me time and a half. So I had to cover some of those, and
but I'm not, next Monday is on right now. This Wednesday, tomorrow is on. And I'm going to do like a flexibility class, perfect after this. That's going to be tomorrow night. Watch for your email there.
So listen, yogis, what I want you to do is do your last stretch, and then we're just basically going to take a closing meditation. It doesn't have to be long, right? It can be 2 to 3 minutes, but I do want you to calm your body after so much kind of stimulation, okay? So, whether it's laying on your back, if you want to do a supported pose in this one, it's fine. So take your time, finish up that last kind of release of the body.
And all you have to do now is relax for 2 to 3 minutes to calm your nerves, to calm your heart rate, soften all those muscles that we were really challenging. Maybe a breath or two just to signal the relaxation. That's one of the spaces I'll let you mouth breathe there. And now you do actually relax your jaw and your eyes. And you just melt into the floor or just sit still and quiet. 2 to 3 minutes, please.